Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Talking Taylor. I am your today's host, Alex Clayton, and we are here with the lovely Lee Duveneck.
Hi. You're here today's host.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm here as today's host. So let's start. Where are you from, Lee? We're also friends. We like each other.
We love each other, and also this is so weird for me to be on the flip side of this, I have to say.
Yes, this is your first time being interviewed. You're usually the interviewer.
There's a lot of firsts for this one. It's the first time, nobody's in the archives, so
We're out in nature.
we are outside. We're
Yeah.
actually coming to you live in Chatham, New York. The company is in residence for the second time this summer at PS21.
Shout out to PS21. Thank you very much for having us.
If you heard some loudness going on behind us, it's because they are, production is teching as we speak, setting everything up. We have performances going on Friday and Saturday.
yeah.
So, but anyway, it's very exciting, all these firsts. Our tour outdoor guest host.
I know.
You're doing great already, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm kind of nervous interviewing for the first time. So let's just get started. So, Lee Duveneck.
Yes.
I'm gonna pretend like I don't know anything about you.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I'm from Arlington, Texas, which is the burbs. It's the square in between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Oh.
North Texas.
Ooh, okay. And where did you go to school?
Are you talking about college?
I guess where's your primary dance education there before you went to college?
Oh, I was a jazz dancer.
Jazz Arena.
I was, which people get confused because I had those pointy feet that
He
they think that I
has
went to
the
ballet school,
feet.
which has been the biggest lie of my entire career. But yeah, I was a jazz dancer, hardcore serious since I was 8, I think is when I started. So yeah, I was started out with like tap jazz ballet kind of thing, and then it got more serious about
Well-rounded.
jazz, and then was going to dance competitions, dance conventions. Actually, the first time I met our coworker George Smallwood, he was teaching. I think at the time he was still with Battleworks, Rubber Battle Company, but he was the ballet teacher at Tremaine dance conventions.
Ooh.
So
Snatching those trophies.
I was just trying to catch focus in a large ballroom full of dancers.
Being humble, you guys, ladies and gentlemen.
Trying.
So you were at Jazz Arena, and
Yes.
then you went to college, and
Right.
where did you go?
I didn't go too far away from home. I went to Southern Methodist University, Meadow School of the Arts, which is in Dallas proper, or just north of Dallas in Highland Park. But
There's a serious Taylor connection there, correct?
there is.
Yeah.
At a certain point, there was a ton of SMU alum in the company. It started, I think, with Anne-Marie Mazzini was the first to be this is the company we should be a part of. And then she, while she was in school, got Michael Tresnovec into it. So the story goes that the two of them were in the library geeking out over tapes of everybody doing Last Look and all the great dance in Americas. And then I think over the years more people went there. George Smallwood, obviously, Carissa Copta was in there, and then a ton of amazing Taylor 2 dancers, Shanti,
Yes.
not Jared, oh my gosh, Susie, Joe, just a ton of amazing SMU dancers. So, which people are always well, what is the thing about SMU and Taylor? And I'm always I don't know. We have very strong Graham, which has
You
come
have
up
a
a lot
strong
on
Graham,
this
yes. It goes hand in hand
on
with
the show.
work.
A lot of Graham. I think the jazz component of it, because they do have a serious they think that jazz is an equal to the other disciplines. So we have our ballet, we have our modern, but we also have jazz, which there is some sort of jazz component if you think about it in pulse work.
Yeah. Pulse work can be very, very theatrical and requires,
Yeah.
I think, a great blending of technical facility with the ability to tell a story. And
Yeah.
jazz for sure will help you get on that. And yes, you started off in jazz, and here you are.
Yeah, totally.
That's pretty amazing. So you go to school, you are doing wonderfully in school, you graduate, and you go where?
Well, my Taylorness though started
Yes,
before
your
graduate
Taylorness.
school.
At school.
It started at school because I think I saw the company my sophomore year in college. They have an annual performance at up in Richardson, which is again north of Dallas in the burbs. So I think that was the first time I saw the company. And they did Profiles, Troilus and Cressida,
Oh,
Banquet of Vultures, which was new.
interesting.
And they ended with Syzygy. I saw Lisa Viola like in her like last year with the company do Syzygy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
she's
pretty impressive.
fierce.
So you were bitten.
But
I
like
guess
so that like
beforehand.
kind of like whetted my appetite. I was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was like sitting too close. I was like in the first row at the Eisman. I was just like, and like just fascinated
Going
by
cross-eyed.
them.
Yes.
So then I think I had done like I did a Taylor intensive that next summer.
Okay.
And it was like something about the Taylor style suited my body really well. I don't know if it's like Paul was such a large man that could move with fluidity that like that, you know, was like just fit well in my body.
Mm-hmm.
So then I remember clear as day, we were doing a tech rehearsal for like the fall concert. It was during when President Barack Obama was elected, like
Oh
the
my
first
God.
time.
Yes.
So we were like all backstage getting like about like election results coming in. We're like, this is happening. And then I remember somebody being like, oh, they've hired a Taylor teacher to come in for next semester and she's gonna stage a work. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
So the spring of my junior year, Ruth Andrian came.
I almost
Ruth
ruined
Andrian.
it. I was gonna be like, oh, but then I stopped myself. Proud.
The Ruth Andrian, who was just so casual because she was just like, oh, yeah. Like, I don't know, it was off-putting because, like, her resume, like, when you Google her, is just she's so,
luscious.
like, the, like, person, you know,
Yes.
like, appeared in so many amazing Taylor works. And then she's just so kind and gentle and, like, motherly, and I was just like, oh, okay.
She saw you and snatched you up.
Well, she taught that class, and then I was just like, oh, I gotta rise to this occasion, because, like, the class comes on point. Like, you just have to, like, go with it. I mean, anybody who's ever taken Ruthie's class will know that, like, you start those roll downs and you are in for a ride, because it doesn't stop.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting Taylor straight from the horse's mouth, because, like, her body is, like, so imprinted with Paul and everything, and, like, the amount of information that you get, and it's not a lot of like, she does give you verbal information, but just simply from, like, being there and copying the way that her body moved and, like, trying to put it into mind, it was, like, this fascinating thing, and I loved it. I was obsessed with it. And then she would, like, start telling stories, and I was just, like, entranced, you know? Like, I think everybody falls in love with Ruthie, and I think that happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
So then I had taken another intensive and whatnot, and she came, and everybody was like, Lee, get in the front, you know her
the
class,
stuff.
which has become something in my career where it's always like, Lee, get in the front, you know her class.
Always in the front. I mean, nobody else in the front. This guy knows what he's doing.
So, and anyway, so then that happened, and then, so yeah, I graduated, and at that point I was like so hooked on Paul and his work, and but also with like I knew at that time how it still works. It's, you have to wait your turn, somebody has to leave, you know, there has to be an opening. So I just was like, okay, like, let's move to New York, let's start studying at the school. I knew that they taught a regular 10 a.m. class that I could be in, wanted to be in. So that was my deal.
Yeah.
Like brushing my teeth in the morning, grabbing a coffee, and then going to Paul's.
Going to the Taylor school.
Yeah. And that was still the time when Paul was like coming into the room. Like, you're in the middle of the back exercise, and he's just ambles in to go get his coffee. You know,
staring you down.
We talked about it with Maria a little bit on hers, but like, just like, he would always be watching, but you would never see his eyes on you. It was like the craziest thing. So we'd always come in, make his coffee, leave. So that would be about like, depending on anybody's classes, like run, jumps back exercise. And then he'd come in before his rehearsal, and that would be about the last combination. So, and probably by that point you would already be dead because you've already done the combination like a couple times. But then he'd come in and then he'd be like, I'm fine, Mr. Taylor, I'm fine, please look at me.
He's like, okay,
so
let me see.
But with me, like, it was about the class because I can still, like, he called me over. Like, so he's not looking at anybody, you never see him looking, blah, blah, blah. And then everybody crosses behind him to go, like, around to come back to the same side. You know, like, you exit left and then have to come back on right. You go around, and normally you're just, like, tiptoeing around him. And he turned around in his chair, and he, like, motioned me over.
I don't know this story.
And, I think we're back. Okay.
Oh.
He pulls me over right in the middle of my good story. Pulls me over, and he's just like, you've gotten a lot better. And I was just like, thank you, Mr. Taylor. So.
And he was very particular as relates to the comments that he would say to people, particularly students. So,
I mean,
quite a testament to you, I have to say.
That was just amazing. I mean, that wasn't like a month in or anything. That was like I think I'd already done a year in an audition, and then I think that might have been around like before the end of my second year.
Gotcha.
Right before he hired me from Taylor too. So, but I was like really happy to hear that he was looking at me and he was happy with
Taking
my
notice, yeah.
progress. Yeah.
You're an amazing, fast, intellectual learner, I have to say. I mean, even being able to observe you now, you have the ability to share so much knowledge, both physically and speaking wise. I mean, hence why you're also the wonderful interview that we have. But I have to say, we are very fortunate to have you.
Thanks.
Yes. So you joined Taylor too. When?
I did. That was in 2012.
2012.
Yes, 2012. And so immediately thrown in, Ruthie was my director. So I like knew
Two peas
her.
in a pod.
Yeah. And she was yeah. And it was like a great group. Christina Lynch Markham was like the queen bee at that time because that was her last year before she got into the senior company.
Yeah.
So she kind of like big sistered me through that, which is like lasted. She big sisters me to this day.
All of us.
But I was like realizing that as I'm doing Oriole now with her, like she's my own, like she was my first duetter in Oriole. But then yeah, and it just lasted. So doing it now, I'm always just like kind of touched because you know it's like we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Taylor 2 was an amazing experience because you are just you're on the road and getting to take Paul's work to places that like probably have never seen modern dance, any modern dance. Like it isn't a question of like audiences going like, oh, we prefer Cunningham. I'm a much more Trisha Brown person.
Yeah.
It's people being like, what is modern dance at all? Like what is dance? I've only ever seen, you know, television dancing, and then them getting to see it and being in small towns and them engaging with the work in such a wonderful way and getting to see so many students. I mean, that was also the residencies that we had. You get to like meet people that and then get to watch their careers blossom after that because
and
then
you had
everybody
some
ends
long
up
residence
maybe and it would just be amazing to watch somebody take on an Esplanade or an Oriole and like see them grow. And then I think it made us stronger as dancers because we had to verbalize what it was that we were doing and get to see like, oh, okay, I understand why Ruthie's giving me that note because as I'm like seeing other people take on the challenges of Paul's work. So I think it just makes you smarter.
There's that quote, right, of like, you know it well enough when you have the ability to easily translate it and teach it to other people.
Totally.
And I mean, Taylor 2 just really, I mean, for all of you all, really gave you that ability to know what it was that you were doing and translate to other people who, particularly some people, right, didn't really know so much, didn't have a great lexicon of. There for 5 years.
I was.
Yeah.
I was, which was, you know, there wasn't any movement in the main company really. Like everybody had stayed, which is great.
Yeah.
I felt like I still had a lot of opportunities. There was some like fill-ins that I did, you know. Like,
Yes.
I did get to go to South America before I was in like officially in the company, which was exceptional. I ended up doing. Michael Tresnevec was so nice because he suggested me to come in. He was having some sort of issue that he needed to be out for a little bit, an injury. So he was like, I've started on this Kegman experience. Will you come in for a couple weeks? Here's like all the tapes of what we had in the process, you know, and the company, Larry's work was the first time that anybody had come into the company. So it was very exciting for the company as itself to like be working with somebody other than Paul and to kind of get in there and do a couple weeks that stepping into the vaunted shoes of, you know, Michael Tresnevec, and then I got to stay on and start the first like week or two of Doug Elkin's process. So it feels like I've had like, even if I wasn't actually in the premiere of the dance, a little bit of like a hand in everything that's come through so far. So that was just really special. Yeah. And I have really enjoyed getting to work with the outside choreographers as well.
Oh,
to say,
for sure.
Like, like I love Paul's work. I'm obsessed with it, as everybody knows. But the new challenges of each of their ways of coming in, and then kind of recognizing how Paul are so involved within that. So, yeah.
So interesting question. Right. So after doing lots of Paul's work, right? You were inundated with Paul's work in Taylor 2, teaching it to other people, so you do know it on a level that a lot of people, don't have that application process to. And then also being in the company for as long as you have been, right? What are your interesting connections between doing new work versus Paul's work?
I think if you're asking about like the challenges of it that are slightly different, new work, it needs to like everybody's discovering it together in a certain sort of way. So it's the challenge of here's something, make it into something as quickly as you can so we can look at it, and then it might get discarded. So you're kind of involved in the creative process of it. Whereas with Paul's stuff, it's a different challenge because here you're handed something that exists, right? You can see it on a tape, and then it goes even further because then I'm looking at all the different iterations of it, which is also another fun challenge for me, is to be like, well, what's valid and what isn't, and then how can we make this relevance, probably the wrong word, but like how can we make this something that fits on us as a group of people, because each group is so different, it's like, and we come with different stories. I mean, I think the group today, right now, the company as it is, has a very different background than, say, the company looked like in 1965. But if you get a piece from 1965, how can we look at the way that it changes, how it was adapted to the company in 1972, 1983, 1998, Each different generation of dancers does it slightly differently, and I think there's interesting to be like, what's the core, the germ that is necessary for this piece, and then how can we take from other generations and also make this something of our own. And I think that's just so fun. I mean, we've been working on it lately a lot with like Oriole, right?
Yes.
Carolyn Adams is our, part of that is that she's actually in the studio just outside the door.
Yeah.
So we've invited her in to give us her insight into it because she's there. So that's another person's idea of it, and all that information, and then that gets met with Betty's information that she has, Michael Novak's information that he has, Kathy, Andy LeBeau, our rehearsal directors. So it's all that melting pot of everybody's thing, and then us just as a group of 5, whoever that group may be at that time, kind of going like, okay, this is, let's go with that. That's going to work for us. Like, let's make sure to tell our counterparts, our understudies, what's going on. But I do think that there's something about the group as we are now that makes it special.
Oh, for sure. It's fascinating that there are so many articulate people that I feel like, beforehand, I was, would come in maybe once in a while or wherever we were in life, right? And now it feels like we have like such a heavy collection of really articulate people who can really come through, right? And like, fortunately we still have, we have Betty there in the studio who is so active.
I had this idea where I was just like, thank God Betty is here.
Thank God.
Because like it isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
Like Paul's not here, and like that was so special that you and I got to like work with him. Even for, it was just a year, but like the idea that like Betty DeYoung gets to coach me on this dance that she has been around for since the beginning of it is just like, I was just looking at her the other day and I'm just like, this is so special. So I'm always so grateful to have her, to have Carolyn, and then to have Kathy and Andy in the studio too, because like everybody that comes in and offers their knowledge, their bit of love, it's their love of the piece that they want to share with us. And I think that that's what you need is like the love that we all have for Paul and Paul's work.
And definitely their investment feels also like geared towards us as well, right? I feel like there are times where Betty or Andy or Kathy will say, I'm looking at your body and it looks like this move may be different for you than it is maybe for, where I'm looking at a video of me trying to be Francisco Graciano or Rob Cannondor's. And I'm like, oh, come on, do better, Alex. And, it's amazing where, you have people who are so knowledgeable who can sit there and look at you and go, I think you can achieve these things with your body, with your proportions, doing these things, and being able to look at the other iterations and pull from those iterations.
Yeah.
But speaking of outside choreography, doubling back, here we are at PS21, and we are currently doing a reconstruction of Kurt Yost's The Green Table.
Oh my gosh.
It is such a beautiful and hard dance. It's such a hard dance. I remember watching the Green Table in college and thinking, wow, like that was actually one of my main segues into modern dance of just how powerful movement could be.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested to know, as we are doing this reconstruction, what are your thoughts? What does this process feel like for you?
I mean, if you're going to talk about people sharing their love of something, the stagers, Jeanette and Claudio, who are here from Europe, it's amazing because I just think that they are such amazing caretakers of this work, that like has been around since 1932. Like this is not
1932.
like you. That's incredible, the amount of time that this dance has lasted and the care that they take to try to both honor what Mr. Yost wanted while also trying to like share that with us and like let us kind of bloom within the like parameters of it, because the dance can be so easily lost, right? Like we've seen it on tapes a million times when it's like, somebody just not learned this correctly, like how did this happen? And then it's a game of telephone because it degenerates over time unless you really like take the care to go back and be like, no, like let's decide to do it like this, because I think that's what the choreographer wanted. So, and I think in this thing where Kurt Yost has died in the 70s, so he hasn't been around for a long time. They are here. They are his his people that are coming to take care of it. It's amazing. It's an amazing work. It's incredible to see. I believe from what I've heard about is that this was his time of melding classical ballet with modern. I think at that point in Germany, like modern dance had been kind of like what we thought of modern dance here, where it was like a rebellion against. And it wasn't for us until much later that classicism of the legs came more into modern dance. I think in the 30s, Martha Graham, we had like the primitive mysteries. We had stuff that was it was all very parallel and square. There was no rotation of the spine. She hadn't made Diversion of Angels yet. No. Where there was lyricism as much. It was about being, the like antithetical to ballet. Yeah. And so already in 1932, you had this ballet, which was really what it is. You see the classicism within it. Especially my part, I think. I think Death has the classicism to what he's doing, but his steps are very, rounded, earthy kind of thing, as you would think Death would be. Yeah. I'm cast as the standard bearer, who is this kind of heroic character. He's like he's the heroic one going, let's go to war, even though I don't think that the choreographer really believes that heroicism is right, Yes. I think Kurt Yost was a pacifist. I think ultimately the work is about pacifism. The only one winning amongst this piece are the gentleman in back, the profiteer, and Death. Yes. But I'm certainly getting to do some bravura steps that are very different from what I'm doing in Paul's work. But it's been amazing. I also thought gesture is so.
Gesture is so fascinating.
We're talking a lot about like the difference between like flip or turn and the offering of the hand, which I don't know if the stagers know how much of that is within Paul's work, gesture. But we're having this interesting time of getting to put that into our bodies about gesture, because they are very clear about this is the intention of what this is meaning, and make sure that it doesn't become too much of this or too much of that. Yeah. Because it can definitely get, again, as you said, muddled, right? Like we can add. Oh, I mean, gesture is the hardest thing to put into your body, right? Because like one would think these big grand steps where you're twisting your body, doing something, like the craziness of like say Last Look, where we're throwing ourselves around, but like that can be sensed. You can quickly get it. It's the small little like this is the gesture that needs to read for just amount of time before you flip it over. Those are the hardest things really to convey and get right. Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because this piece feels like a you're looking at a macro view of war, right? And so you're looking at the nuances of people dying, of people losing other people, right? And so there are times, for instance, in Last Look, which feels like a snapshot of time, right? Yeah. It's a specific period of time where people are experiencing a multitude of things, but in truth, it's sort of one sort of like physical cry that you're experiencing. While here, you have to be able to tap onto each subtlety easily. So, speaking of the connections of modern dance, do you find any parallels between other Paul's work?
Oh, a ton of them. I mean, the most obvious one is going to be Banquet of Vultures, which even I looked it up. Paul did say in press when people asked him about it that there's a specific step that he gave to Duveneck as the main figure, the main evil figure of that dance, as that was an homage to Curtios's ballet and the death character. So certainly Paul had seen it and it was on his mind. I think they're fascinating to kind of view. I took a film class in college and I'm fascinated because studying German expressionism at that time and the way that that fits into the green table. You had the gentleman in black and then there's a blackout and it goes into these 7 other scenes of death coming into the battlefield and all these things, and then it goes back to the gentleman in black at the end. So it's kind of we go to in a scene and then it cuts back and you do a flashback and you get cut back up, which is very film,
that is
but the
very
expressionism of it. And then to see Banquet of Vultures, which a main theme of that is about retrograde, where you'll do a phrase and then you have to retrograde it or reverse it, and how Paul will have you do something and then he has the entire scene kind of reverse back and then you start from the beginning but it has a different ending. So it's so even then I can kind of see the parallels of how Paul's creation is, more a contemporary version of that. But it's all in there, you know, the idea of war being this never-ending thing. And I also don't think that...
And cyclical, for sure.
Entirely cyclical.
Yeah.
And that was such an amazing dance to do. That was the first dance I did at Lincoln Center as part of the main company. And I remember the ovations that it had. Obviously for Duveneck because was so incredible at that role. But I also think that at the time, people were really feeling how this dance was so relevant to us as Americans. But there's a ton of other things. I mean, even the score for Four Hands kind of gives me soccer vibes. You know what I mean? So I love that. I love, like I said, the gesture. I love the sense of comedy within this very kind of harsh storyline. Every time we have that thing at the beginning for the guns and you kind of open your pocket and put it in. It's just such an arch gesture. And it seems so in Paul's wheelhouse. You know what I mean? Everything
very
we're doing.
obscene, very sort of
after you've seen this entire dance of death and destruction, and
caricatures.
I also think that the big thing is how death within the screen table is such a multifaceted character. Jeanette has been very clear about when she's coaching Sean about in this scene, you're ignoring her, you're implacable, whereas in this scene, which is the old mother, you're going to take her gently into her arms. So he's tied in that death isn't just this one note character. In fact, that death has all these different things. And I think that is such a Paul thing to do.
Oh, for sure.
Speaking in tongues, to have the man of the cloth, he's not just this one dimension kind of character.
Person. Yeah.
So I think great choreographers are alike. And that was Paul. He was carrying on the tradition of the great choreographers and updating it to today, but also, just really putting in the beauty and the specificity of it all, and he was a genius. Yeah. And it's what an honor for us to get to dance.
What an honor.
You know, you and me specifically, we're gonna dance.
Partners again.
I know.
We're always partners in everything that we do, and I'm not mad about it. Let's keep it rolling.
But let's be partners in these great masterworks.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, so.
I have to say, it's wonderful to be your partner in the green table, and it's wonderful to be your partner in Oriole.
I have to take him over my head and chuck him, and every time I'm just thinking in my head, I'm gonna end my best friend's career today. Because it's high up there, people, and he gets high and then he flies, and then I'm just please don't hurt yourself.
I am chuckable.
It's true. He is like a tank. I should give you that credit.
Oh, I mean, and I have to say, I feel very secure with you. This part, what is this now? 5 years, beginning of my 5th year in the company, I have to say.
We got hired together.
We got hired together.
Part of your
5, right? I have to say, there's almost nobody else. Well, I trust other people in the company, but you are the top pick. If I have to be thrown across the room, by Lee Duveneck over here.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if there are any questions, I don't see any questions. But if you have any questions for either Lee or I or anybody else in the organization, please feel free to send a message to Paul Taylor Dance, to the Taylor School. You can find Lee at
Lee.Duveneck.
Yes, and you can find me at A_Clayton on Instagram. But before we go, I have notes here. If you're like, why is he looking to the side? Just a reminder, we will be at the Botanical Gardens having performances.
Performances.
Yeah, on the weekends, later on in August.
I think it's 2 weekends in August and 1 in September, but please check our Instagram and our website for it.
Please, please. We will also be at Bryant Park later on in August, so you're gonna want to see that too.
I think we're doing Esplanade.
Oh, yes, I think so.
You know that dance.
That other wonderful masterpiece.
Relatively unknown dance.
We're gonna have more Taylor talk so we can continue to share our love.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think you're just gonna keep on popping up.
Maybe, I don't know. If you
I
liked
get
me
a
as a
cold,
host, let me know.
He
Okay.
does like good feedback.
I do love good feedback.
Positive feedback.
Yes.
If it's negative, we don't want to hear it.
Yes. Oh, if it's negative, keep it to yourself. You can send me some flowers, though. That's okay. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks,
today. It's a pleasure. And thank you again to Lee. I have to say, he's been a wonderful interviewer this is the Lucky 13th,
13.
I know, Lucky 13th episode. So you really have been phenomenal.
Thanks.
And this could not have happened if it were also not for you. So kudos to you. Thank you very much. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back too. And we will see you all next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.